Hi, this is the Lab 6 tutorial video. The goal of this lab is to translate your abstract idea to a concrete study. In this tutorial, I will go over some tips for Google Forms and for Qualtrics. First, let's look at the Lab 6 assignment. Here we have the goal, the assignment, and then the actual instructions. Again, you'll be in the same group that you've been working with Lab 5, and there's two things that need to happen today. By the end of lab today, you will need to get verbal approval that your consent form and your study are approved. Then you can go collect data and you can finish writing up your method section. You will need to collect as much data as you possibly can from lab 6 to lab 7, and your method section is due at 8 a.m. the day following your lab. First, let's look at Google Forms. We're going to go to forms.google.com. Here, you're going to start off with a blank new form, and you will have a title as well as a spot to start with questions. Your first question should be a consent form. Based on the consent form, you will need to add skip logic so that if someone does not consent, they will be kicked out of the study. So if I have some text here, I would then first say, I consent, I do not consent. Google Forms organizes everything into blocks. Everything that you want on a separate page will need to be on a separate block. For example, the consent form will need to be its own block so that a person can consent or not consent, and then they would go on to the next page, which would be a separate block. When you're considering whether to use Google Forms or Qualtrics, you should consider what you can actually do with each of those survey methodologies. With Google Forms, you have a limited amount of questions that you can ask. You can ask short answers, paragraphs, multiple choice, checkboxes, drop downs, as well as some grid options for multiple choice and checkboxes. Note, if you want to use anything other than the basic multiple choice questions, you may want to use Qualtrics. Qualtrics has a functionality to do timing, as well as randomization, and other features that we'll go into in a few minutes. To access Qualtrics, the best way to do that is to go through qualtrics.colorado.edu. This will redirect to the Colorado version of Qualtrics and will use identikey. There you can log into Qualtrics using your identikey. And you'll see your dashboard. Your dashboard will have as many projects as you have used in Qualtrics. For me, that's a lot. For you, it might just be one or two. In the top right corner, we'll click Create New Project. And here we're going to just start off with a survey. Click on Get Started. And here we might want to rename our project to something that will make more sense for this class. So a couple things to orient you towards Qualtrics. One of the things you may want to do is to collaborate with the other group members. If you go to Tools, you click on Collaborate. After everyone's logged into Qualtrics, they will then get a Qualtrics specific user ID. You should then use this user ID to search for their name. For example, you don't want to actually put in their email address. You want to put in this, you want to type in their full name like this, like Shaw Kettles, and then actually then click on the user ID that pops up and click Add. You don't need to create an optional custom message, but you will want to give them access to viewing reports, activating, deactivating, and distributing the entire study. Click Save, and then everyone else should be able to collaborate on the same study. Again, your first question should be your consent form. In Qualtrics, there is the option to use the Qualtrics specific consent form, which is quite helpful. If we go to import from library and then search consent form, we can get the informed consent and we can click on import entire survey. That'll give us an informed consent template that we can fill out, and that will be sufficient for our study here. Just like Google Forms, Qualtrics also uses blocks. Each block is a separate page. You should take this into consideration if you're using timing questions. Let's set up a simple memory task for me to show you. We'd click add a block, and we can click create a new question. So here, maybe we want to present them with 5 words that they have to memorize. So we would change the text to descriptive text, so there's no answers. Maybe we want to have them memorize book, and for each of these words, we only give them 2 seconds to look at the words. So we're going to add a timing question. The timing questions can not only track how much time a person takes on the survey, but also can limit how much time they take on the block. So we can change enable submit on the right-hand side to 3 seconds because we want them to auto-advance after 2 seconds. This way the submit button will never be shown, but they will be auto-advanced after 2 seconds. Now, we can either create a new block or we can add a page break. The timing question operates on any given page. So here I want to make each block a memorable thing for me so that when I'm coding this study, it makes sense. So I'm going to name this block memorizing, and then I'm going to add in a page break. On that timing question, I can go to the right-hand side and add a page break. Change this question type to descriptive text. And maybe I'm going to have them remember the word broom. Add in my timing question. Enable submit after 3 seconds, auto advance after 2. You do need to be very detailed when you do a setup like this, because if you don't set up every single component in the same exact way, then your participants will have a different experience on different questions, and that could be problematic. Next, let's look at recoding values to help you in your data analysis. Let's create a multiple choice question that'll be a Likert scale. So here we have, do you like ice cream? Qualtrics has a really nice feature where they'll give you auto answers. And so here you have automatic choices, yes or no, or you can do disagree to agree, so on and so forth. We'll keep the yes to no range. For here, we want to actually look at recoding values. We'll go to advanced question options, and we're going to go to recode values. What this allows us to do is to change what the values of these numbers are. For example, it might make more sense to actually have definitely yes be a 5, probably yes be a 4, might or might not be a 3, probably not be a 2, and definitely not be a 1. The other option we can do is make this a positive 2, a 1, a 0, a negative 1, and negative 2. I'd highly recommend recoding values now so that when you get into R, you don't actually have to recode any values there, and you can add, combine, or subtract any of your survey questions without having to do any more manipulation than you have to. Thinking about things on the front end before you actually go to analysis can help you in the data analysis stage. The next thing I'd like to show you is how to rearrange these blocks and how to add randomization. Here we can go to survey flow. So we'll click on survey flow, and here they show us all the different blocks that are in our survey. This is why organizing things into blocks can be helpful. For example, I'd want to have the informed consent be at the top, so I'm going to move that to the top of the survey flow. I may want to have a randomization between the memorizing block and the block 3, which was our do you like ice cream question. So I can add below, and I can click randomizer, and then move each of those elements underneath. Here we can either randomly present both elements and counterbalance whether a person sees the memorizing block first or the survey questions first, or we could just have them look at one block. Maybe we're interested in looking at different sets of words. Maybe we have one word list that's all of the same letter and another word list of that has varying letters. Maybe that'll give us a between subjects factor of having same letter versus different letters. And so we only want people to actually look at one word list. We'd want to have randomly present one of the following elements with a between subjects factor with two levels, but we'd also want to have evenly present elements that each of those groups are even. We click Save Flow to finish out, and this page won't look any different, but your survey flow should have the same format. So we've looked at collaboration, we looked at importing informed consent, looked at timing, as well as randomization and multiple choice and recoding. Those tools should be a good start for you guys to start coding your studies. Good luck.